I start with this? What do you
Yeah,
think?
it's the togetherness that works.
It's togetherness.
Yeah, I've in every menu I've kind of struggled with explaining to people what I do, because on one side you have people coming in here expecting hummus, and on the other side of it you have people coming here.
What do you mean? You mean in general or this dish?
In general.
Oh, this is delicious.
Thank you.
And you can easily enjoy every part of it.
Yeah.
That's the fish is, what is it?
So it's a horse mackerel.
Horse mackerel.
Which represents for me the biggest revelation of the last year. I was in Israel for a week. First time in 8 years that I've been home. It's not home, but I've been to my homeland.
And where have you been?
Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv.
I went for my cousin's wedding, and I said, okay, I'm not going to just fly in for the wedding. I'm going to be there for a week, and I'm going to see what is new in the culinary scene and what's... And exactly as I landed, like a week before, they closed the ocean. So they stopped fishing. On one part, they said it's some sort of a ecological thing that due to overfishing. But on the other side, they let the big companies with their big boats go out, and the small companies.
So you suspect something else?
It's always political. In Israel, it's always political. It's always let's find some way to make the private citizen's life a touch more difficult, so he can appreciate what he has when we're not doing it. It's a form of mind control.
And that's how you came to this fish.
Yeah, and one of the things was that, okay, I'm in Israel. I'd really like to cook dinner. I'd really like to kind of cook with friends and stuff. So we did an evening in a restaurant, and we kind of started looking for ingredients, and we talked about the fish, and he said, my friend said, listen, we're limited right now because the ocean is closed, but we get only the good stuff. Because the big fishing companies, they catch everything, but they don't care about the special stuff. They care about the big tunas, and they care about dorade, and they care about the adler fish, which are the basic fish that sells in the supermarket. They don't care about the special stuff. And when I was there, they caught I don't even know what's the English term for it, a flock, a group of horse mackerels. And they were just amazing. It's super tasty raw, has a very strong sea taste. It's super rare even in the Mediterranean. They're not big, but they're kind of related to the amberjack, to the Spanish mackerel, to the bonito. It's like, it's not like this smaller mackerel that we can think about, but something completely different. And it kind of, actually for me, it was like this kind of a revelation that being here, I've been very focused on turbos and langoustines and lobsters and let's call it Atlantic international fish. And part of the concept is basically being true to where you come from.
And is it difficult to get the fish here?
So that's the funniest story.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge. So there is very little importing of Mediterranean fish into Germany, and it's a market that loves quantities. So the German market loves when people buy a lot of something, then it comes in mass quantities. It comes in cheap, and it was a bit of a challenge. I've had a lot of help with that, I have to admit. But we managed to get it, and it was super exciting for me.
Great, this is great.
And
where does I taste a lot of acidity here?
Yeah, it comes from basically from the idea of preserved lemon
and saltiness.
It comes from the idea of preserved lemon, basically made from yuzu. So it's a bit of let's call it the international combination of basically on one side having the yuzu, which is considered part of the classical Japanese kitchen, but it's still a citrus. So it's very common in Spain, Tunisia, Israel, Morocco. It's still here. It's just a very, very difficult tree to grow because it doesn't give any fruits for the first 10 years. So you really need a farmer that's very patient and can see into the future. And the second thing is there is a salsa of yellow dates. You see them mostly in Turkish markets. These unripe, unsweetened dates. They're very tannic. And the first instinct that I got from tasting that was that it's not very dissimilar to tomatillos. So I've made almost a salsa sauce out of it, basically taking into an almost Mexican interpretation of a Middle Eastern ingredient. And I think this kind of, in a way, this plate kind of summarizes what we do.
Yeah, this is the dates are much softer and lighter in taste, and then this the creaminess and the cheese breaks the saltiness and the acidity. Yeah, it's great. It's like music.
Thank you.
Yeah, but you said this brings down or comes down to what you are trying to achieve here. And you said your cuisine is very much located in a certain region, but it's and this is something there's a phone ringing. Is it important for you?
Just get me I'll shut this up.
So in fluent German, you
No,
answered the phone.
No. Don't say that.
No. We yes, I heard it. But
don't say that. Nobody
we
knows.
won't switch. No. But you speak German. You speak German.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
It's like the secret.
It's like a secret. But why hiding this?
Because I don't. Because
yes, you do. But
no, I sound like an idiot, and I
everyone sounds like kind of an idiot in a different language.
Yeah, exactly.
Strange language.
And I'd rather not sound like an idiot. I'd rather sound like myself. I'm much more. I can be myself in English, so I can be funny.
Okay.
I can use word plays. I can engage in a conversation. In German, my language is completely functional. I used to say that I only know German when I need to know German.
All right.
You know. Okay. How good is your German? Well, if the police officer comes, I know what to say.
Okay, that's fine, absolutely. Yeah, but no, I just started to say that locating your food in a way is you said that's what you're going to do, or that's what you are trying to achieve, and that's something I watch in Berlin a lot of times, that food is more and more located in certain areas or in a certain authenticity, maybe. Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit.
I think it's different than what's happening right now in Berlin. I think a lot of people are saying, okay, we're going to use regional food where I know the farmer, where it's nearby, where I can kind of have an influence on the production process even. And it's a low CO2 signature and a lot of things that have to do with the sustainability of the supply chain. For me, it's kind of different. First of all, it's impossible for me because my terroir is 4,000 kilometers away. So it's not the same. I also don't know how much chefs that do that in Berlin do that from feeling that it is authentic, because they're not. I think very few of them are doing actually German food. So I think it's about getting a product that the closer you go to the more you cut out the middleman in the supply chain, the more you get closer to the source, the more you have control over the quality. The more the quality becomes the main thing in it, because I think that when a big supplier, and I'm going to give the example of Deutsche See, buys fish, they think about needing to supply thousands of restaurants, needing to supply hotels and embassies and everything from one Michelin Star restaurant to an Italian restaurant that has a €9 lunch.
Mm-hmm.
So they think big. They don't think, I just want this quality product. And the chef, when he goes and says, okay, I'm going to go to that fishing boat that I know that is, or to this guy connected to these few fishing boats, and he says, well, I can get you the best stuff because I get first pick, and whatever this boat gets that is mass market, it's going to just sell to Deutsche See or sell to a bigger supplier. But I want the 6 kilos wild turbo that only you got, and that's the difference. I think it kind of makes you have more control of the product you're getting, because you're not sharing a market with 1,000 restaurants. You are the market, and I think that's what every fine dining chef dreams about, basically, of controlling the ingredients that come in.
Okay, how big is the part of finding the right supplier of your cooking, of your cuisine?
Huge. Oh. I can't do it without my suppliers, mostly because I'm 4,000 kilometers away from where these things come from, and it's a lot of. In the end of the day, we buy from people, so it doesn't matter if you buy if it's your salesperson in Hafeland or if it's your the farmer that you pick up the phone and tell him, hey, can you please slaughter the sheep tomorrow? For me, it's the people that import and travel to Syria and Turkey and Lebanon and Jordan and bring interesting stuff with them. These are the people that I need to work with. And it's quite interesting because it kind of crosses political borders in a way, in my situation being Israeli and these people definitely not being Israeli. And it's quite interesting, and it's kind of a very fascinating cultural exchange that is always happening. And I think that's the fun part of it.
And is it an ongoing process, or are you always? So even after, how long is Prism open now?
Prism is open for a year, but let's say I'm doing this Mediterranean food.
Yeah, already
3 years. Let's say
in your former restaurant, Glass. Yeah.
So let's say we're doing it for 3 years. In these 3 years, I've first of all met a lot of new people, and I think that my the level of discovery is always growing. So you start from the basic things, from the things that you know from home, that you know that are, let's say it like this, they're not supermarket products in Germany, but they are supermarket products in Israel. Mm-hmm. So you start from these things, and then you say, okay, your horizon is broadening, and you start going to these markets, and you see the stuff that the Arabic grandmothers are buying to cook at home. You're saying, okay, this is different, and this is interesting, and I'd like to know more about that. And then it grows even further because you learn about different spices. And I think that when you came here, it was just coming back from Neukölln, and it's really funny because I always see something new. I always see something that I say, oh, I don't know about that, and oh, this is new for me, and I'm trying to get it, and I'm trying to test it and try it and see how to include it into my kitchen.
And has this to do with new people coming to Berlin?
Yes, definitely. Yes? So I think the whole concept wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for the big immigration, refugees influx of 2017, 2016. I think it wouldn't have been possible to do that. I wouldn't have the half of the ingredients. These things, there were Lebanese people here, there were Turkish people here, but there wasn't a market that was conscious about food. And I think you see that very well in Neukölln, how the Syrian immigration came in and suddenly new restaurants open, how suddenly new supermarkets open, and it's quite intense. I mean, you have a Syrian restaurant nominated for Berliner Meisterkoch Zinnersort. It says something. It says something about what's happening in the city. And these people have food as they come from a relatively rich society. They have, that's completely broken now, but they opened pastry shops, they opened restaurants. Food is coming forward. And then you see that, again, the selection that I'm talking about, it's always growing. So 3 years ago, there was no wild herbs. Now every winter, every Tuesday, there comes a huge delivery of wild herbs from the region, which is something that's completely unique, tastes like nothing we know here in Germany.
It's a big thing, and maybe not every Berliner is aware of that.
Exactly.
I think, yeah.
And it's sometimes it's a bit lack of the draw on what day you go to the supermarkets there, but you have their amazing things that you don't normally see. I've had a trainee in the kitchen from Israel a few weeks ago, and we went to Neukölln, and he was kind of shocked that there is stuff here on the market that in Israel is considered complete rarity, that you need in Israel to travel to Arabic villages in the Galilee to find that one farmer that grows it, and here it's by the boxes in 3 different supermarkets in a 50 square meter radius. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
But it's good because it means the culture is coming here. It means that that culture is enriching our culture. And
what does it mean for the cuisine, for the development of the cooking in Berlin? Do you think that what is the trend? Is the trend going more to authentic food, or is there a kind of melting together?
I think it's a process. I think the current trend is probably would be the novo regional ingredients, minimalistic being influenced. I genuinely believe that Middle Eastern food is the next thing. I think you can't ignore it. We have so much rooted on the same things, unique ingredients, cooking over open flame, a lot of smoky tastes. It's with global warming, you have more sunlight here. This kitchen with the fresh lemon juice and the fresh garlic really kind of becomes important, becomes very relevant to the climate and to the people. You go on vacation in Greece and Morocco, you like this food, you come back home, you want it. And I think that you have this huge amount of human talent coming right now from Syria, from Lebanon, from Israel, spreading across Europe. And I think it's the next thing that's happening.
And what's about the possibility to cross borders, as in culinary, in a culinary way? I think that's a big thing too, because you can, as you do, you can close the gap between cultures in a dish.
Yeah, I like the idea of it. I think that a lot of people come in with I think the first step of this will be the traditional mindset kind of becoming more persistent. I think having Aldi Mashki nominated for the Meister Kosher was one step of it. I think there is Malake that in Potsdamer Straße, she does amazing Syrian food. You have Damascus the Konditorei that does amazing baklavas, and I think it's only a question of time before they kind of realize where they are. I mean, if you look at Kindi as an example, and I really love that example of basically doing Thai food with German ingredients. I think that's obviously the future. But it takes us time to kind of learn where we are. So the first step is obviously bringing everything that you know and having the authenticity, and then the next step is basically realizing where you are, what's the ingredients that are common here, and adapting to where you are. I don't think it's on anybody's list from this group to basically go back tomorrow to Syria and open a new restaurant. They're here to stay, and I think it's a good thing, and I think it's going to bring a lot of interesting influences. I think you already see it. I think you see it in Eins unter Null. There is the Zanla dish with the lamb and the falafel, and I think you see it in Biberbau. You see it in quite a lot of restaurants. That is kind of even Lodenstein. So you preserve them suddenly on the menu. Harissa, grilled cauliflower, tastes that are very classical Mediterranean, very classical Middle Eastern. They're suddenly coming into. We have a lot to learn from each other, and I think that's great. I think it's just about enriching the culture. Same way that there is Italian pizza and there is New York style pizza. It's a complete new thing that was created due to Italian immigration into New York.
learn from each other, but staying specific in a way.
Yeah.
Before you decided to go in this direction, and do this specific culinary style or voyage. You worked on an more international base. Or
we all make mistakes.
I wouldn't say that, because there are great names on your CV list, like Jason Atherton, right?
Yeah.
Marcus Waring and Alinea, the restaurant in Chicago of Grand Acre, right? 3 stars and really world famous. So tell us a little bit about this, and why do you think now that's a personal mistake to go in this direction?
Okay, so my education has always been, like, my work experience has always been in, let's say, it's something that borders on French modern. So if you strip down the linear from all the fireworks and all the
gimmicks,
you said I would silently agree. And gimmicks, you would take it. It's the French Laundry. Mm-hmm. It's where Grand Acre grew up. It's where half his team basically came from. This is the way he's running the kitchen. This is the philosophy. The preparations themselves are classical French. The techniques and the things behind it are postmodern reinterpretation of a restaurant. Maze was with Jason Atherton was more Pan-Asian French. Marcus Waring, very classical French. He basically was French. And for me, it was always these kind of restaurants. And when I came to open my own restaurant, I think I stressed. I think I wasn't ready. I was way too young to open a restaurant.
How old were you?
On the day the restaurant opened, I still was technically 26 years old.
Okay,
which is
very young.
No, 27. Sorry, but still very young. It doesn't actually matter. And it was just this kind of a feeling that I got frustrated from being in Israel, from working in Israel, from not having any future in Israel for what I want to do in terms of food. And I was kind of looking to do something new, to do my own thing. And I opened the restaurant and I kind of was like, okay, this is not, I don't actually know what to do. I have my own style, which is when the food lands on the plate, there is certain platings that I've adopted over the years, certain flavor combinations, this seek of balance that still exists in what I do. But I didn't have a signature. I didn't have something that I did that I said, oh wait, no one can wake up tomorrow morning and do it. And I think that was a mistake. And I think I wasn't mature enough to open a restaurant. I wasn't focused enough to open a restaurant. And the thing that happened was that I struggled. And when you struggle, the instinct is to basically go to basics. Is basically take the stuff that you know and basically wrap yourself around it.
Surviving more,
yeah. But you do it by basically, these flavor combinations work, these dishes work. You kind of try to focus yourself on something that is known to you, that you have cooked this 100 times. So for me, it lacked uniqueness. It had my palate, it had my hand on the plate, but it wasn't mine. Mm-hmm. And I think that the first night and that we did the Middle Eastern concept, it was a winemaker's dinner. It was completely random. No, it wasn't random, but it was completely by chance. I love Chateau Moussao, the Lebanese winemakers, and me and Jackie met them in Provine, and we struck conversation, and it was like, like you meet someone and you say we should have been friends our whole lives, but not really. And we struck this amazing conversation, and I was like, okay, we have to have a winemaker's dinner with them. I love their wines. And when they said yes, I said, okay, so why don't I try to do something which is Middle Eastern to go with the Lebanese wine? Mm-hmm. And it was the best dinner I ever cooked. At that point, it was the best menu I conceived. And the funny thing was that I enjoyed doing it more than anything. I woke up the next day.
This is important, right?
It's the most important thing. It's I felt I did something that actually mattered. I felt like I did something new. And I woke up the next morning and said, okay, that's what we're doing now. Because I feel like it has meaning. It's not something that I've done 100 times in my life. I'm actually creating something new. And I think I've throughout all the years, it was really funny because so you work. I worked in Maze, which was part of the Gordon Ramsay restaurant group, and you work for Jason Atherton, who worked for Gordon Ramsay for 10 years, and he has a certain way of doing things. And then you finish working there, and you go working for Marcus Waring, who worked with Gordon Ramsay for 25 years. And you see that things are very much alike. They wouldn't want to admit it, but there are some similarities in the way that they do things that it's just very... There are 3 restaurants that do that, 4 restaurants that do that, 10 restaurants that do that, 20 restaurants that do that. It's everybody who worked in that restaurant group for a long enough time, was very talented, opened their own restaurant, they just do things the same way. And you're saying, okay, where's the uniqueness in that? Where's the chef is no longer a manager, but actually the guy that's creating something new? Because they all ended up running away from Gordon Ramsay to start their own thing, to do their own thing. But they're actually ending up doing the same thing because they've been doing it for 25 years and
the influence is so big, and
exactly.
he's successful, so
why fuck with success?
Exactly.
Can I say fuck on podcast?
You can in our podcast you can do that. It's appreciated actually.
Bleep me afterwards. But then you think about it and it's like it's a natural instinct to just continue to doing what you know, but it has no excitement about it. And I think I started from doing something that was about taking very international dishes and putting a touch of Middle Eastern into them, and that was basically glass almost to the end. And then it basically progressed to what I'm doing now, which is completely reinvent Arabic flavors.
Is part of the fun also the fact that that there's a certain risk, or that sometimes you don't know what you're doing?
I'm so self-confident, it's insane. I come across as I'd like to come across as very humble and modest, but when I'm doing things, I have this very, very strong confidence that I know what I'm doing. So it's going to work out. And if something doesn't work out, I bury it so deep in the trash that nobody knows that it happened. So let's say I've tried this fermentation a few days ago that had a very key Middle Eastern ingredient, and it was standing on the shelf, and one of my cooks came to me and said, "Where did that go?" And I was like, it fell and broke. And actually it didn't taste very good. And I wasn't very happy about it. But I think it's really one of the fun things about it is that I feel like I'm the first one who's doing it. It's like there's a great feeling of accomplishment in this, but there's also this kind of almost naive feeling of taking it at stride, because let's say I'm not comparing this. This is not a comparison. This is just saying, let's say Neil Armstrong takes the first step on the moon. He can't do it wrong. I mean, he can slip and fall. He's still the first person to step on the moon. I'm the first person to do that. If it doesn't work out, I'm still the first person to do that. So I define what's the limit of what I'm doing. When I was doing the international food, it was really funny because I said to myself that you convince yourself that, I don't put borders on myself, and there is no geography, there is no limits, and I can use all the techniques and all the ingredients in the world. But I was feeling more closed down than I do now, because it felt like my inspiration is just things that I've touched. It's just things that someone else can do, and it kind of put me in a very small place, and kind of also my perception of myself and my perception of my kitchen. And now it's a bit like, okay, I'm the first person doing it, so there are no limits. I can decide tomorrow morning that I'm making a koji out of zatto, and I have. And And it's kind of cool because you've started something new. Nobody did it before. It's really interesting.
You definitely did. But are there new gals on the horizon?
Yes, definitely. There's a lot, and this is so much fun. So when I started 3 years ago, I looked up, and it was like basically one Turkish restaurant in Melbourne called Tulum. It's highly recommended. And their chef was for dinner at Glass. It was really a fun experience because like meeting him was really cool because we're just two people doing the same thing tens of thousands of kilometers away. And there is now a Lebanese chef de partie at Noma that does these pop-up dinners, and it really brings to the world this combination of his, and I think that's the most important lesson from all this. I'm going to get to it in a second. And there's also an ex-Daniel Bolo sous chef operating in New York doing that. Also still at the pop-up level, but I think they're bound to open their own places. I mean, the uniqueness of the talent is there. And I think that what I want to say is that the most important thing out of all of this is the authenticity of it. Is the connection to the roots. I think trends come and go, but if you look at certain chefs, if you bring yourself to the plate, it's above the trend. It doesn't matter anymore what's in the background. You're good. You're if you're doing yourself and you're doing it well, then you're above the trend. You're above the what's happening right now. So somebody can come right now and let's say the trend is the Scandinavian minimalistic regional food. Somebody will come right now and do not regionally driven, but take German food into fine dining. He will be above the trend.
Yeah. One trend certainly is to scale down in a way top food and present it in a casual way. You have this social menu. I don't know if it's a trend, but I think it's something that you can see everywhere in Berlin. And another thing seems to be that simple food gets more and more refined, or more and more specific, or more interesting. Yeah,
I think that's a blessing for Berlin. I think that the fact that the casual. So when I moved here 8 years ago, which is a long time ago, the casual food scene here was I don't want to say bad words, but embarrassing.
Yeah,
because it was very limited. There was a lot of really bad coffee, a lot of really simple restaurants, but in a bad way. Simple in the sense of it's like you are strongly connected to Italy. You would say there were 8 years ago many good Italian restaurants in Berlin.
No,
and I think that was like a bit got into people the idea that the food in Berlin isn't good, but I think now it's completely different. Now you have in every kitchen such a strong combination of international cooks coming here, human talent, endless human talent, and you have these trends, basically anything from good Thai restaurants to really good Japanese food fusion, barbecue culture that is out of this world. I think best in Europe, and you're starting to see this kind of increase in it, and I think it's because the younger generation cares more about what they eat. And they want quality. They're not as functional about it as previous generations. And you have this international expat audience, and they're creating this new and exciting restaurant scene, and it works. I think the jump that Berlin made in these 8 years is uncomparable to anything, to Copenhagen and London, but the leap is much more significant. Is basically from 0 to 100.
Yes, that's really amazing. And I don't know if everyone in Berlin is aware of that. The culinary scene is, but and you are, but many people.
It takes time to educate an audience. I don't think you can force it into somebody's throat. I don't think somebody who eats every week at his local bakery that buys frozen goods from some margarine-heavy factory that produces tens of thousands of croissants a day. You can tell him, listen, if you pay €2 more, you can have this handmade croissant with the real butter and the really good Valrhona chocolate in it. Go convince someone. It doesn't work like that. You can't tell someone to do it. He needs to want to do it. And I think that's the gap. These things take time, but I think that still the leap that has happened here is unexplainable. It's amazing. And I think the other thing is that you do have the younger generation being more into food and kind of pushes fine dining restaurants into I wouldn't say accepting. It's not that. It's more allowing it, more kind of trying to make themselves accessible to bring this audience.
And it's part of a certain lifestyle. You have those photos on social media, etc.
Look at the restaurant today.
It's part of it.
But I think it's kind of it's an international thing. I think in per se New York there is the 30 under 30, which is it's the most expensive restaurant in New York, and they're doing 30 seats every month for people under 30-year-old for under €100, under $100, and that's like a third of the price. And I don't think it's about the restaurant making money, because the restaurant basically gets booked out in days out of we can sell it if we want to. It's about reaching an audience and basically saying, hey, somebody under 30 is right now wants to eat in my restaurant. I want to allow him to eat in my restaurant. I want him to be able to afford it. And I think for me the social thing was, I realized that it's happening, that people in Berlin want food, not just the full experience. They want to be able to enjoy everything. And I think you want to allow it. You want to let people try your food. We're all, in the end of the day, we're all artists, and we all want to be loved, and for people to eat our food and say, wow. So the more people eat it, the bigger our audience. That's what we want. So I think it's a very natural connection to that. I think I came to Berlin. I think the Tim Rau lunch used to be like this thing where you would go and now it's not anymore, but prices have hiked a bit. But
it's not every day anymore. It's not every day. Offer it every day anymore.
Yeah, but let's say the lunch at Facile. It's like it's a great opportunity. You take €50. You have all the bells and whistles of 2 Michelin Star restaurants, and the same desserts that probably the best pastry chef in Germany is making for the dinner menu. So like, why not? I mean, just do it, and it's fun. I mean, it's great to see the Scandinavian customer who comes to Berlin, sees the alcohol prices are down and drinks all the fancy wines and orders the 8 courses, sits down for 4.5 hours, and to see the 25-year-old people who are excited about food and, wow, this is our first fine dining restaurant because it's there's this sharing menu and we want to try it. So that's great.
So it works for your restaurant?
It works.
Great.
It's a nice balance. It also makes the room happier, makes it less stiff in the atmosphere. I love that, because it just gives us also, in the same way that it kind of unstiffens the team. So I hate stiffness in fine dining. I hate waiters that don't smile, and we have like this very warm and nice service people. And by having customers that are more talkative, that are more in it for the experience, despite not just wanting the food and the wines and to be left alone, you have more of a conversation, and the team gets kind of this jolt of energy out of that, because they're not just sitting there eating like the living dead. They're coming to have fun.
Hopefully not. Yeah. How international is your audience, or are your guests?
That's the funniest thing. So in Glass, I was very lucky. One of the things that kind of survived the restaurant for as long as it did, despite having quite a difficulty with the local market, was that they had quite a lot of international acclaim in the first 2-3 years. Things that today I look back at it and it's like, okay, this would be really nice if it would happen again now. We talked a lot about the effects of whether changing the name from Glass to Prism and moving, how much of an effect it would have on the business. So in Glass, it would have been probably 80% tourists and 20% German. and now it's almost 90% Germans and 10% tourists.
But Germans, tourist Germans,
No,
or Germans from Berlin?
Berliners. We have
wow.
like
That's surprising. Yeah.
I would say we have almost 20% of this very hardcore audience that is coming back every new menu that we make.
Mm-hmm.
That just people that's almost a familiar face. Like Table 23 was here 3 weeks ago for the previous menu, and they're here for the new menus. Three menus, 4 menus. Everybody's been here. Yeah. And that's important. And also German tourists. But we've lost all the international acclaim that we've had. I went from being the guy that's basically side by side with the Berghain on GQ magazine to basically no one. Basically start over, and it's kind of. I have to admit that I prefer it like this. You
are exaggerating a little bit.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
I'll show you afterwards the article.
Okay.
It was really weird.
I mean you exaggerate your not being present.
I don't. I think it just takes time to build. You know, it's this international press is like a rolling ball. It's an avalanche. You have these small stones. This one article in this Swedish newspaper. This one article in the Guardian, and then kind of people know, oh, this restaurant exists. This restaurant exists, and it becomes something big. I had in the span of 2 years, basically an article in the Guardian, the most major
Glass, you mean?
Glass, the most major Swedish newspaper here, GQ magazine, and ITER's heat map for Berlin, and it basically TripAdvisor's Traveler's Choice Award, and all that basically in 2 years, and this basically set me up for work for 2 years. I didn't need German customers. Now I kind of have all the German customers I want. I don't have any tourists. Because let's say, I'll give the most classical example, which would be TripAdvisor. We're a new restaurant, so we have only positive reviews, but we're number 3,000 out of 7,000 restaurants in Berlin. Nobody cares. And the international press hasn't picked up yet on the fact that the restaurant actually exists. A star would really help with that. But yeah, and it just was a bit starting over with the international market. But if you ask me if I prefer it like this. It feels much more like an organic growth.
Yes.
That your customers. I always say that the newspapers don't matter for how successful you are, because that's the guest definition. Like if the review is good, it's not good. It sets the expectation of the guest. So basically, the guest decides to try the restaurant. He comes in and says, "I've read this good review. It must be good." Because if that night, it's so easy to disappoint the guest that has read this stunning review, and you need to kind of say, "Okay, how do I make him happy when he's already expecting to be blown away?"
Yeah.
And I think that's the magic of it, because you got them in the door. Now it's all on you. The paper can't help you right now. The fact that it was good when the critic ate it does not mean that this customer is going to be happy. And I think it's a much more natural growth to basically start from the local market, convince the local market, and then kind of really reacquire yourself with all the international guests.
What about your neighborhood? You are here. You're located in Charlottenburg, so it's. I like it very much. You being here and your decision for the western part of Berlin, because it's so untrendy.
I think I can see the future, and you're all wrong.
Okay, great.
No, I'm joking. When I moved to Berlin 8 years ago, my first apartment in Berlin was 50 meters that way, on Kantstraße. And I just love this area.
That's home turf.
That's home turf. Yeah. And I love this area. It feels my most comfortable, because I'm not trendy. I don't go out to clubs. I don't go out to drink. I don't.
Personally,
I don't like techno. I do fine dining because I believe in fine dining. I don't do bistro modern interpretation because I don't like bistro modern interpretation. I'm a nerd, And I think this neighborhood represents who I am. Much better than being in Prenzlauberg or Kreuzberg. So, I'm not cool.
So this is the most important thing, being authentic and being who you are, so you can show what you are, and people will get the most out of you.
Yes, and it's crazy because this part of the neighborhood is so different than Uhlenstrasse, where Glass was.
Really?
It's like it's as if it's not even in the same city.
A colleague and a good friend of mine lives here. Yeah, you know that. Yeah. It's
very different.
Yeah.
I'm shocked by how different it is, because it really feels almost like a different city. And we were in Glass for 5 years, and I can be very critical about what I'm doing, but I'm still proud of it as a restaurant. We've had maybe 3 or 4 couples that I would say are neighborhood locals. I don't count the people who are traveling in from Potsdam or people who are coming from it and like the restaurant, even if they're regulars. I don't count them as neighborhood locals because they make the journey. But the kind of people that will say, oh, my babysitter, I have a babysitter and my friend's cancelled, so I'm just going to go into Glass because it's close.
Mm-hmm.
We had maybe 3 or 4 couples like that. I can count and that's in 5 years. I can count maybe 24 couples here from the neighborhood that are that regular.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, even if 95% of them are social guests that having the sharing menu, I don't care. They're loyal customers.
Mm-hmm.
And they come here because it's their restaurant. If they have guests, they're bringing them here. If their kids are visiting, they're bringing them here. And I love that. I love it because I feel it makes me feel more connected to where we are, into this neighborhood. And it's one thing that was missing from me in Glass. I think I don't know if I ever told you this. First time I went into Toulouse-Lautrec, I had this experience that, and there was the sign on the entrance. I think it's gone now, but Batman would hit here.
Yes, it's gone now.
God, no, bring it back. And
it's about copyright, you know.
Really, get sued by Warner Brothers. Basically the wallpaper and the dress and the music, not being a classical restaurant music, but being what Max and Ilona like, and there was this coherence in the experience that I kind of said, you can't fake it.
Yeah,
it has to, and I think that's what I've managed to accomplish here that wasn't in Glass, to be in the right place that represents who I am and create the location that represents who I am. And I think it was such an amazing experience to see that, and I think it made my whole appreciation for the restaurant, basically. The amazing food, amazing service, but the coherence of the experience was everything. The fact that in every part of the experience it sings, it actually screams almost, in a very, very authentic way, because you can't fake it.
Yeah.
You can't make this stuff up, and I think it's when you have enough confidence in yourself you're mature enough to do things the way that you think are right, and I don't care what the critic says, and I don't care about what this old guest is going to come in and say, oh, this music is too loud, or this, why is the waitress so happy? Yeah. I think it's just great. And I think that here we have this, I really like the fact that I think that my service team kind of represents me in the dining room. I don't like to go out of the dining room. I don't like talking to guests, and they really manage.
I know.
Yeah, and they really manage to. I do it when I have guests that I really personally like, and then when I do it, I kind of feel that I'm lost for words, that I don't know what to say.
But you don't have to. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
But I always feel like they're such an amazing team because they manage to capture what I want to capture in the experience. That they are me, and being able to do this white plates fine dining that is maybe not right now